Johnny Somali's newest prison photos are leaving people shocked, after reports claim the streamer has lost nearly 40 pounds behind bars in South Korea. But honestly, it's not that surprising, after reports revealed inmates are surviving mostly on rice. But that's not even the worst part. I got more details on the brutal conditions. On April 15th, 2026, a judge in Seoul did something Johnny Somali spent months saying would never happen. Ramzi Khalid Ismail, the harassment streamer who calls himself Johnny Somali, spent months on camera insisting that no Korean court would ever put him behind bars. A Seoul judge just put him behind bars. Ramzi Khalid Ismail, known as Johnny Somali, was sentenced to 6 months in prison by the Seoul Western District Court. The 25-year-old was convicted of obstruction of business and distributing deep-fake content following a series of disruptive live streams in Seoul. That sentence alone was a landmark moment in internet history. But what happened after the verdict is what made things escalate beyond anything anyone expected. The judge declared him a flight risk and had him cuffed in the courtroom. No grace period, no time to collect his things or say goodbye to anyone. Just handcuffs right there in front of everyone watching. The sentence is 6 months of prison with labor, plus 20 days of additional detention, 5 years on the sex offender registry, and permanent forfeiture of his phones. That last part, permanent forfeiture of his phones, might be the most symbolic punishment a court has ever handed down to an internet troll. The device that built his career was taken from him. No more live streams, no more chat donations, no more content. The court said the 25-year-old displayed severe disrespect for South Korean law, noting that he offended countless people with live-streamed stunts aimed at generating YouTube revenue. The court was making it crystal clear that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a cultural mix-up. This was someone who deliberately weaponized disruption for money, and a sovereign nation had decided to make an example of him. Prosecutors had sought a 3-year term for Ismail, who also faced accusations of harassing staff and visitors at an amusement park, disrupting a convenience store by blasting music and upending noodles onto a table, causing similar scenes on a bus and subway, and distributing non-consensual deepfake videos. The prosecution wanted 3 years. They laid out a mountain of offenses, but the court landed on 6 months because of what it described as the absence of severe harm to victims. That 6-month number might sound light to some, but what happened next ensured that Johnny Somali would be locked up for far longer than half a year. Johnny Somali has appealed his 6-month prison sentence in a South Korean court, and prosecutors have also filed an appeal seeking a harsher penalty, setting the stage for a second trial. He filed his appeal 5 days after the ruling. Prosecutors who had sought 3 years in prison and a fine of 150,000 won in the first trial also appealed the verdict a day later, arguing the punishment was too lenient. And here's where South Korean law throws a devastating curveball. Under South Korean criminal procedure law, a defendant cannot receive a heavier sentence if they are the only party to file an appeal. However, when both sides appeal, the court is no longer bound by that restriction and may impose a harsher sentence. So by filing his appeal, Johnny Somali opened the door for the prosecution to potentially get the 3-year sentence they originally asked for. According to legal experts tracking the case, he essentially doubled his time behind bars. Even once his sentence is finished, he will still be stuck in the detention center awaiting his appeal trial, which could last over a year. And the clock started ticking the moment the handcuffs went on. To understand how a live streamer ended up wasting away in a Korean detention cell, you have to rewind to the beginning. And the beginning doesn't start in Seoul, it starts in Japan in 2023. Johnny Somali did not begin his international career in South Korea. He started in Japan in 2023, where he built a following making content specifically designed to disturb and offend the Japanese public. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't a young man traveling and inadvertently bumping into cultural norms he didn't understand. His incidents there included playing racist songs on trains and making vulgar comments about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki directly to people on public transport. Think about that for a second. He was walking up to complete strangers, elderly people, commuters, families, and making references to one of the most devastating moments in their nation's history. Not to educate, not to discuss, just to provoke a reaction, because a reaction meant views, and views meant money. This includes comments about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, such as him going to people and shouting Hiroshima, Nagasaki, we'll do it again. He wasn't even being subtle about it. He was screaming atomic bomb references at random Japanese people on camera and uploading the reactions. He was arrested in Japan and temporarily banned from the country. He was arrested in Israel as well, earning a ban there too. 2 countries, 2 arrests, 2 bans, and it didn't slow him down one bit. Ramzi Khalid Ismail, born September 26, 2000, better known as Johnny Somali, is an American former nuisance live streamer and YouTuber, best known for his provocative and hostile behavior while in other countries. Ismail has been banned from Twitch, Kick, Rumble, and Party. Every single major streaming platform eventually kicked him off. Twitch banned him, he moved to Kick, Kick banned him, he went to Rumble. Rumble removed him, he tried Party, Party suspended him. Somali's YouTube account was terminated in November 2024 after the Statue of Peace incident. He was running out of countries to harass people in and platforms to broadcast from, but that didn't stop him. He arrived in South Korea as the next country, where his existing reputation would draw an audience and where apparently the possibility of legal consequences had not yet deterred him. By the time he filmed himself at the Statue of Peace in October 2024, he had already been arrested in 2 countries. The pattern was building toward an inevitable breaking point, and South Korea was going to be that breaking point. If you know one thing about the Johnny Somali case, it's probably the Statue of Peace incident, and there's a reason for that. It was the moment that turned an internet nuisance into a national enemy in the eyes of millions of South Koreans. On October 7th, 2024, Ismail kissed and performed lap dances on the Statue of Peace, a memorial that commemorates young comfort women, sex slaves for Japanese soldiers during World War II, though he later apologized for his actions, claiming to be unaware of its significance. To grasp the enormity of what he did, you have to understand what that statue represents. The Statue of Peace, known in Korean as Pyeonghwabi, is a bronze memorial dedicated to the victims of Japanese wartime sexual slavery, a label the Imperial Japanese military used for the estimated tens of thousands of Korean and other Asian women who were forced into sexual slavery by Japanese forces during World War II. For South Koreans, the statue is not a piece of decorative public art. It is a memorial to systemic sexual violence against women, and it occupies a deeply significant place in the country's collective historical memory. And Johnny Somali, on a live stream, for content, for views, kissed it, danced on it, performed sexually suggestive movements against it while broadcasting live to the world. The video spread immediately and generated what can only be described as nationwide outrage. The incident was raised in the South Korean parliament. Ordinary citizens offered rewards for information about Ismail's whereabouts. This wasn't just internet drama, it transcended the digital world completely. Lawmakers were discussing him by name. A 770 rubler bounty was placed on him by online communities seeking his location. Professor Seo Kyum-duk of Sungshin Women's University publicly called for a strong sentence and described the act as a desecration that demanded deterrent consequences. But here's the thing, people outside South Korea often miss. The statue incident, while the most emotionally explosive, was just one piece of a much larger puzzle of offenses. On September 27, 2024, Ismail went to Seoul, where he played loud, offensive noises on the subway, such as speeches by Kim Jong-un, and was ejected from a bus after playing loud North Korean music. Playing North Korean content in South Korea, a country still technically at war with the North, is provocative on a level that's almost impossible to overstate. On one occasion, Ismail bought ramyeon noodles and purposefully poured them onto a table in the dining area. He was causing scenes at convenience stores, blasting music, upending noodles, harassing people at amusement parks, and creating chaos on buses and subways, all on camera, all for content. He was also charged for having caused discomfort to pedestrians in Mapo-gu with a bag of rotten fish, and for having disturbed commuters on a bus and subway by playing loud music and dancing, together constituting 2 violations of the Minor Crimes Act. A bag of rotten fish. just walking around Seoul's streets with decomposing fish to harass passers-by while filming their reactions. This is the sort of detail that made South Koreans look at this man and decide collectively that he had to be stopped. South Korean authorities indicted him in 2024 on public order and obstruction-related charges and barred him from leaving the country while the case played out. From the moment of his indictment, he was trapped in South Korea. No fleeing to the next country. No moving on to the next target nation. He was stuck there, waiting for the legal system to grind through his case. If the public stunts were what made South Korea hate Johnny Somali, the deepfakes are what made the court throw the book at him. In March 2025, Ismail faced 2 charges of sexual violence, and authorities added a sexual charge onto Ismail's case for creating a fabricated pornographic deepfake, which depicted a female South Korean streamer and himself without consent. In May 2025, a second sexual charge was added onto Ismail's case for another fabricated pornographic deepfake depicting another South Korean streamer without consent. These weren't minor add-ons. These charges were filed under South Korea's Special Act on Sexual Violence Crimes, a serious designation that treats the non-consensual creation and distribution of sexually explicit deepfakes as sexual violence. South Korea has some of the strictest deepfake laws in the world. Creating and distributing fabricated sexual content featuring someone without their consent isn't treated as a prank or a joke there. It is treated as sexual violence, full stop. The lawyer representing one of the victims said his client suffered emotional distress after Somali used her images without consent to create and distribute a sexually explicit deepfake video. Real people, real harm, real trauma. The trial itself became another spectacle. While he was on trial last year, Somali tried to enter the courtroom wearing a red MAGA hat, associated with supporters of President Donald Trump, but was stopped. During the incident, he said that Korea is a vassal state of the United States, drawing backlash. He was facing the possibility of years in prison, and he chose to try to make a political statement by wearing a MAGA hat into a Korean courtroom, and then calling South Korea a vassal state of the United States. The judge saw all of this. The trial stretched on for months. Ismail's third trial commenced on August 13, 2025. During the trial, Ismail changed his position on one of the obstruction of business charges to a guilty plea. Due to a witness from Lotte World showing up to testify against him, Ismail also pled guilty to a 4th charge of obstruction of business. As the evidence piled up, Somali began flipping his pleas one by one from not guilty to guilty. A Lotte World employee showing up to testify about the harassment at the amusement park prompted one change. Additional charges prompted others. The final charge count was 8. 4 obstruction of business counts, 2 violations of the Minor Offences Act, and 2 counts of distributing sexually explicit deepfake content. Guilty on all 8. And then came his final plea for leniency before sentencing. According to reports, he told the court that he was sorry, that as someone born and raised in the United States, he didn't realize the consequences, and that he felt the law was unfair. He then complained that South Korean police didn't act against another Korean streamer, who he claimed also shared the deepfake videos. Legal Mindset states that Somali's apparent blaming of South Korean law may have caused the judge to lack empathy for Johnny Somali. Local media reported that Somali apologized for his actions before he entered court, and that his mother submitted a petition for leniency last month. Even his mother had written to the court asking for mercy. It didn't work. The disgraced YouTuber will also have to register as a sex offender. Upon returning to the US, after completing his sentence, he will be deported from South Korea and face a permanent entry ban. His future post-sentence was already mapped out in the worst possible way. Sex offender registry, deportation, permanent ban from the country. And now we arrive at the part of the story that is currently unfolding. The part about what Korean detention is actually doing to Johnny Somali. After filing his appeal, Somali wasn't transferred to a labor prison. He was placed in a detention center while awaiting the retrial. And according to multiple reports, these detention centers are something else entirely. These detention centers are described as hell, and even worse than labor prisons, with 6 people in a cell, 1 shower per week, the food being only buckets of rice and soup. 30 minutes of outdoor time every other Saturday, and no air conditioning. Let that sink in. 6 people crammed into one cell, 1 shower per week. Your entire diet is rice and soup served from buckets. You get 30 minutes of outdoor time every other Saturday. And there's no air conditioning in South Korea, where summer temperatures routinely push past 90 degrees Fahrenheit with crushing humidity. This is the environment in which photos of Johnny Somali have been circulating, that show a man who looks nothing like the brash, energetic provocateur who used to storm through the streets of Seoul with a camera. People who have seen the recent images describe a gaunt, noticeably thinner person. The reports of 40 pounds of weight loss in detention have spread across social media, and when you consider what the diet consists of, rice and soup every single day, the transformation starts to make complete sense. As Dexerto reported, the conditions in the detention center are being described as worse than the labor prison itself. The labor prison at least comes with routine, structure, and a schedule. The detention center is limbo. You're waiting. No phone, no internet, no content, no audience. Just you and 5 other people in a small cell, eating rice and soup and counting the days. According to legal experts, he's essentially doubled his time behind bars. The appeal didn't shorten his situation. It extended it, and the conditions during the extension are worse than the original sentence would have been. But in a bizarre twist, a leaked letter from Somali told a different story, at least on paper. Johnny Somali says he's actually having fun in Korean prison, according to a leaked letter, and wants someone to send him books about the stock market. The letter, verified by members of what's been called the Somali conviction team, showed him asking a fan for stock market books in English and claiming he was laughing with his cellmates. Whether that letter reflects genuine positivity or the bravado of someone trying to maintain his image from behind bars is up for debate. What's not up for debate is the physical toll. The photos don't lie. The weight loss is visible, and the conditions: 1 shower a week, rice and soup, no air conditioning, no sunlight, except for a half hour every other weekend, are the conditions that produce that kind of transformation, and things may be about to get even worse for him. Since this is the second victim asking for severe punishment for the YouTuber, and since the South Korean prosecution asked for Somali to be sentenced to 3 years of prison labor, his appeal may backfire. Legal Mindset also states that Johnny Somali's lawyer dropped him while he spends time in a detention center. His private attorney, the one who knew his case inside and out, dropped him. Somali has been assigned a public defender, but this too is a problem for the YouTuber. Somali's lawyer was very familiar with the case and knew everything about the defendant, whereas the public defender will now have to catch up with the case. This is bad news for Johnny Somali because public defenders in South Korea are typically overworked. So here's the picture right now. Johnny Somali is sitting in a South Korean detention center. He has lost a reported 40 pounds. He is eating rice and soup from buckets. He showers once a week. He has no phone, no internet, and no platform. His private lawyer dropped him. A public defender who doesn't know the case has been assigned to him. Prosecutors are pushing for 3 years. A second victim has filed a petition for severe punishment. And if the appeal court decides to throw the full weight of the law at him, he could be in South Korea for years. His buddy Hank is suing him for about $50,000. So he's got that to look forward to. Apparently, under Korean law, he won't get his passport back until all legal matters are settled. Even after prison, he's not free. He can't leave South Korea until every legal matter is resolved, and there are multiple legal matters. He may have to register as a sex offender when he returns to the US, pursuant to the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act. And his antics will probably prevent him from getting a visa to travel to other countries as well. The man who made a career out of going to other countries and causing chaos will likely never be able to travel internationally again. The man who needed an audience to exist now has no platform, no phone, and no way to broadcast. The man who taunted strangers about historical atrocities for views is now the subject of a story that people will talk about as one of the clearest examples of what happens when internet trolling meets real-world consequences. The 6-month term is a firm warning to the growing subculture of IRL streamers, who travel abroad to engage in high-octane harassment for views. While Ismail's defense team argued that his actions were performative, the South Korean judiciary made it clear that the real-world consequences of such performances, including the distribution of non-consensual deepfake videos, warranted criminal lockup. Johnny Somali didn't lose £40 because of some voluntary diet. He lost it because the country he chose to disrespect decided that his comfort didn't matter. The detention center doesn't care about your follow count. It doesn't care about your content strategy. It cares about 6 people in a cell, rice in a bucket, and a schedule that gives you 30 minutes of sunlight every other Saturday. The photos that have surfaced tell that story more effectively than any headline could. A man who was once always in motion, always loud, always on camera, always performing, is now quiet, thin, and stuck in a foreign country with no end date in sight. The appeal that was supposed to get him out sooner may keep him in longer. The lawyer that was supposed to fight for him walked away. And the prosecution that put him there is coming back for more. That's where the story is right now, and it's not over.